Ryan reminded us that success isn't about being flawless. It's about being better than you were yesterday, 1% better. He wants you to be successful. So if you're an athlete listening, understand this. 1% daily becomes unstoppable momentum. If you did the work consistently, imagine who you'd be this time next year. If you're a parent, focus on growth over grades, identity over image. And if you're a coach, model progress first, standards follow example. Ryan, thank you again for reminding us we're never finished building. Family, if this episode moved you, share it with someone committed to growth. I'm Coach Randy, and this is a Built Different Studio podcast where we break down the mindset, systems, and habits that create champions in school, sport, and life. Time out. Let me ask you this. What if the gap between where you are today and where you want to be isn't talent? It's how you're training when no one's watching. That's what this studio podcast is all about. We don't chase motivation. We don't hype potential. We build identity through habits, standards, and systems. This is where student athletes, parents, coaches, and leaders come to sharpen how they think, prepare, and perform. I'm Coach Randy, and this is the Built Different Studio Podcast. Let me ask you something. What if the biggest mistake in development isn't focusing too much on who someone is today? Family, what's up? Coach Randy here. Welcome to the Built Different Studio Podcast, where we just don't talk about success, we train it. Mindset, systems, habits. This is where champions in sport, school, and life are made. And today's conversation, it's about potential. Because some leaders manage behavior, others build futures. Ryan Snell is the kind of leader who sees beyond the present moment. He doesn't just teach lessons, he develops people. He doesn't just chase perfection, he models progress. His belief is simple but powerful. Get 1% better every day. If you did that consistently, who would you become in a year, in 5 years? Ryan, he leads with work ethic, with humility, with the understanding that there are no shortcuts to meaningful success. And here's the hook. We're never finished building. Today, we're talking growth. We're talking discipline. We're talking what it really means to be built different. Family, help me welcome Ryan Snell. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, we're excited to have you on the show today, Ryan. And before we talk growth and leadership, I want to start with you. Not your role, not your resume, you. For everyone listening, who is Ryan Snell? What experience shaped your belief that development is about who someone can become, not just who they are right now? Tell us about yourself.
Well, I grew up as an only child, so I got tricked a lot.
Okay.
I always joke with my parents, we didn't have a lot growing up. So, if I wanted to go do something, my parents were very smart on the way they did things. They told me that we couldn't go there because guess what? We don't live in that facility or that community. So we couldn't go to that place. So, it built a lot of growth from a young man's perspective. And I was able to talk to adults more and understand where they were coming from because that's who I hung out with a lot. We moved around quite a bit. My dad worked for a company called Caterpillar, who's based out of Peoria.
Well known, yeah.
So we moved
a
all
global company,
yeah.
right?
Yes. So we moved around, and he was a North American security officer for South America. Was part of his thing. Canada, United States. So we moved around quite a bit. So it was one of those, you didn't get comfortable right away. And then you kind of had that crunchy exterior because all the kids were always, wanting to see what you were about. And so I didn't let a lot of people in. And then I think I was about 5th grade. I said, I got to stop doing that. So I started becoming more friendly and I would talk to anybody. And it was just kind of nice. And
I like that.
Talking to adults and just having those relationships with them. And I learned from them that, be a better person than you left what you found. So going out there and, cleaning up garbage, holding the door open for people. Yes, sir. No, sir. that's just how I grew up. And when I was introduced to golf, I was about 6 years old, and I thought, playing
Okay, so
golf
you were
was,
swinging the golf club that young,
yeah,
huh?
yeah. So my dad, I was a caddy for my dad, and
Okay.
so I thought golf was looking for golf balls in the pond, finding the turtles over there, and not
Yeah,
doing that,
the
but
fun golf, the fun
the
golf.
fun golf, yes. And so going up and caddying for him, being quiet on the green, and just learning those things about how observing what's around you and kind of reading the room. So being able to do that stuff. And my mom was a very strong person. Unfortunately, passed away a couple years ago, but she still taught me so much. And it was just one of those. It's like you need to be the best person you can be and show people how they can be that way. Always make them
Okay,
smile.
okay,
Make them always
okay.
wonder what you're up to. You could be,
Ryan, I want to pause there a little bit. You
yeah.
mentioned your mom and she taught you a lot. What is
Mhm.
that one phrase that you remember she always said or always talked about? What is that phrase or for, that
Oh,
motto? What is that
yeah.
motto from your mom?
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass. Okay, give me
Yeah.
some background on what that means.
She would, if you were having a rough day, being an only child, I'd come home and it's like, I didn't make any friends today. And she's like, hey, listen, this too shall pass. Don't worry.
Mm.
You can't dwell on it. You've got to go and look at the next day. One of my
Okay,
best,
that sounds like that's powerful. It sounds like a biblical phrase as well,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
This too shall pass. I love that.
yes,
Let's put that on a T-shirt and sell that worldwide, not even
worldwide.
nationwide, worldwide.
And we could
Yeah.
step it up and say, this too shall pass right now would be nice.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I love that. Yeah, continue with your story again.
So, and and I took that into golf a little bit, and I had a really
Okay.
good teacher. And it was my dad who taught me a lot of it, but I was able to go to a golf camp, and I had a gentleman by the name of Lee Rogers,
Okay.
and he told me your next shot is your best shot. And so I kind of,
Another phrase.
yes.
Wow.
So, thinking about that's like, okay, your next move is your best move. Okay. That cliche, the trip always starts with one step. And that's kind of where I
Yeah.
put those two together. And it's like, you never know what's going to happen. You kind of have to just work with the waves of things. You can't just be so rigid and say, this is how it's going to be. You just kind of move with the flow of things. And if it
Okay.
doesn't go your way, you can't dwell on that. And so that's kind of where I learned from my mom. And my dad would always say the same thing too. They both were very instrumental in building that into me. Is like, this too shall pass. Don't let the negative things, anchor you down. You need to move
Yeah.
forward.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's powerful in terms of all of our listeners out there. Everyone's facing struggles, right? Daily
Yeah.
struggles, whether it's in school, sport, or life. And
hmm
knowing that this too shall pass. Now, that's amazing. Did you end up playing any golf in high school or beyond high school?
I did. I played for the high school here. It's East Peoria Community High School. Played there for 4 years. I was very
Wow.
lucky. Actually,
Okay.
my freshman year, I didn't even make varsity, so it was like, okay, that there really put that fire into me of I'm gonna make the team next year, and I'm gonna make varsity for the next 3 years,
Oh,
and
that's
so that
amazing.
was a help. So played well there, and then moved on to college. We have a local college here called Illinois Central College, and at the time we were ranked in the top 10 at Division
Oh, wow.
three
Okay.
school.
So
So
you played collage golf.
correct,
Oh man,
correct,
that's amazing. I mean, I can't, back to our listeners, one, not making the varsity team as a freshman. I mean, not just golf. I mean, that happens to a lot of kids, right? Whether it's
yeah,
football, basketball, soccer, badminton, whatever, volleyball, any sport. You may not make varsity your freshman year, but if you do make it your next 3 years, even the next 3 years is still good. There's some that don't even play varsity until they're
ex-
senior. And
absolutely.
even playing at the next level, playing golf at the next level, any Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, even
Mhm.
junior college for that matter, playing at the next level, there's a small percentage, less than 10% that
Yeah.
can play sports at that next level. So, yeah, your accomplishments are amazing from the sports standpoint. So, you've said you focus on who students can become tomorrow, not
Mhm.
just who they are today. When
Yes.
did that perspective shift happen for you, and how did it change the way you lead?
I've been an athletic director now for about 15 years. And so the
Okay.
first couple of years, I'm trudging through mud, trying to figure out how to get traction. What am I supposed to do?
Mm.
Trying to make sure that the kids all have an opportunity to play and, excel. And parents asking me, what can I do to make them better? And I usually let the coaches do the coach thing. I was
Okay.
a coach
Okay.
myself, and I appreciate it when my athletic director or my boss would say, "Hey, you take care of the coaching thing. I'll take care of the rest." But I
Love that.
started buying into the kids'
Roles,
future.
understanding your roles.
Yes, absolutely. I don't micromanage my coaches or anything like that. I let them do their thing because that's what they do. And yes, I was a coach at one time, but my coaching philosophy definitely is different from everybody else's. And so I saw the kids getting in there and just dwelling on the first like 5 minutes of a game. And it's like
Okay.
if they didn't get past, if they had a bad baseball game, softball game, basketball game, with those first 5 minutes, they were just almost unsure of themselves. They didn't have that confidence. But if they started off and
Confidence.
they scored a few points or they made a great play and got along with their teammates, it was a different story. So they kind of just looked past that. So, and I saw a lot of kids just kind of anchoring themselves down in that. So they couldn't do it. So they just
Okay.
kind of stopped and did it. So I moved on from that and I said, okay, listen, guys, you guys can do whatever you want. You are so young right now, and having the ability to do whatever you want. First of all, you're faster than I am, okay?
Okay.
But I can still compete with them. And I would tell,
Yeah.
and I could tell them different things, doing the fundamentals. But if they could do it right and get that play, get a double play in baseball or whatever the case may be, in basketball, making that move, because a lot of them would work in the summertime and they would
Okay.
try to show me what they would do, and they would sit there and dwell on that, say, okay, this is what I did. Now what are you going to do with that? And so moving it forward, and in every game, that 1%. If you increase your ability every time 1%,
That's
how good are you
powerful.
going to be by the end of the season?
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you take it down to, that 1%, what does that really mean? Okay. It's even if you're shooting 50% from the field, 1%, I don't even know the math calculation there, but if you do
Yeah,
51%, oh no, that's easy there. 1%,
yeah,
51%, that's even better. What I love what you shared about that, the confidence of what you're saying is that reframes leadership from managing behavior, building confidence in children
mhm,
and student athletes for that matter. And when confidence expands, standards have to rise too, which
yeah,
brings me to this, right? You talk about earning everything, no shortcuts. In a
yeah.
culture that often kind of wants instant results, how do you instill patience and respect for the process in young people?
It's one of those, it's every kid's different, and
Yeah.
I don't try to blanket them whatsoever. Um, I talk with them and say, okay, what's your end goal here? What do
Okay.
you want to
The
do?
importance of setting goals. Yeah, that's
Yes,
key.
and make sure that those goals are tangible. It's not, I know, okay, let's look at the big picture. Okay, yes, I want to play in high school or I want to play in college. I want to play,
Yeah.
a lot of my
Yeah.
kids want to play professional. And then, you tell them, listen, you're not at that age yet. So there's part of the patience. It's like, okay, let's do a weekly tangible goal. At the end of the week, you want to
Okay.
be able to score so many free throws, or like right now our volleyball season's going on, and how many digs you have or how many aces you have. And if you don't get to that point, it's like, hey, what did I do? You need to reflect on, did I do the things that I know how to do, or was I in the moment? Am I
Mhm.
concentrating on everybody else, or did I concentrate on myself? And so that's kind of hard, the patience part, because I think today's age, it's like instant gratification. I tell
Yeah.
them it's like
Yeah.
mowing the yard. I love seeing those lines in the grass, but
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
I know I can do that. And if they're wiggly, that's on me. But if I can
Sure.
concentrate on making it straight, and it's like, doing it over a few times, not only just doing it when you come to school, you need to practice and do those things at home, or
Okay.
give yourself the
Okay.
tools to do that.
Now that's amazing. Actually, I want to show you this little device that I made and created. It's called the Victory Compass. What it is, it has goals. There's personal goals, mindset goals, athletic goals, and academic goals. So
Yes.
you talked about the importance of identifying goals, and that's kind of where resilience is born. But what I
Hmm.
have here is you can write in your goals, and once you hit it, you click it. You click a switch,
Oh,
right?
that's
So
awesome.
psychologically, it's like, oh, I'm hitting my goals. Now you're hitting another one, but you make a important point in terms of knowing where you are at today and identifying where you need to be, and you need to set goals, right?
Hmm.
Because when goal setting starts, that compounds daily. Small improvements turn into identity shifts. So
Yes.
let's go here. Your 1% better philosophy. It's simple but transformational. What does 1% actually look like in daily habits, and how can a student athlete apply that starting today?
So another thing I teach is not only do I teach PE, but I have health class, and
Okay.
everybody kind of dreads the health day because it's like, oh, we're not playing. And my kids, I'm a kindergarten through 8th grade. So my 8th
Okay.
grader through 5th graders are all in health. And so they always want to play. They just want to do
Okay.
games.
Yeah.
So we have all kinds of those. So what I tell them today, I says, listen, if you give me 110% in my health class and we talk about things, we're talking about daily things of like, fentanyl affects the kids. What do you want to be? Give you directions of okay, so maybe sports may not be your way, but you are very knowledgeable on statistics, and that's maybe going and being a sportscaster. We do different kind of things like life skills. So I says, if you give me 110% in those 2 days of health, then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and play those games you want to play. So currently we have pickleball, and we're trying to build
that's like a growing trend across the
oh my
U.S.,
God.
right? Pickleball.
And we'll watch matches, and at first they're kind of like, pickleball, really? But then when you start seeing it, and they're like, oh, okay. And then I got some decent paddles that they can use. And so we play on tile. Unfortunately, we don't have the actual courts. So I teach them how to spin the ball. I played tennis also in high school, and I was taught the spinning shot. So if I teach them to do that, and it's they try to do that every single game. And then when they and I said, okay, whoever has the best record, I will go ahead and challenge you, and we'll go from there. And so watching them go from it's healthy, it's like, okay, let's get into health, because the quicker we get done with that, we can, I've given them time to pick what kind of games do you guys want to play. It gives them some ownership. It gives them some skin in the game to say, okay, this is what we want to do. And I know they enjoy it. And some of the kids, and I grant, not everybody likes PE, and I understand that. I don't try to play with everybody, but I try to make it fun for everybody. And even those kids that just sit over in the corner, I make them help put up the nets, and so they understand how far apart they need to be, how big are the courts. And so intellectually, they like those kind of things. It may not be the physical, but they also use their mind in the PE class. They use their mind in the health class to be able to say, okay, this is what I kind of want to do now. And maybe it just kind of stirs them up a little bit. I can't.
Yeah.
And I tell them a lot, I can lead a horse to water, but I cannot make them drink.
Okay.
That's another. I use that a lot with them.
Okay. No, thanks for sharing that. That simplicity in terms of just making things fun is what makes it scalable, right? Now you have participation, now you have engagement, and anyone can commit to 1%. Right? I mean, actually, when my head coach here, that's one of our foundational phrases that we have. We have it printed on a big poster board, and it says, get 1% better. So when you stack those small wins long enough, confidence becomes earned, which leads me here. You lead with humility and constant growth, embracing feedback instead of ego. How do you model that in a way that encourages others to drop their defenses and focus on development?
I've been working on that probably, I'd say and truthfully being the last 5 years. I've really worked hard on making those relationships, not only with the kids, but their parents, to let them know, hey, I see those kids more in a week than I see my own children. So I get about 7.5, 8 hours with their children per day. So at the end of a Friday, I've got 40 hours invested in them, where I may see my daughter and my son, 2 or 3 hours a day, if I'm lucky. Telling them that, sometimes my bar might be high, but that's my expectation for them, because if they're just going to sit there and sit back on their heels, I don't want them going through life doing that. It's like, I can just kind of do this. I want them to be better every time. I want them to say, okay, I've accomplished this, and notice it. And I'll tell them, hey, I saw you did this, because I have access to their grades. And I said, hey, I saw you did really good on that science test. And, little things that they don't think that I'm going to look at.
You see,
It's just, it's like when I was a golf pro, you always, when a member would talk to you and they said, oh, well, my daughter did this, and then you come back a couple of days later and say, hey, how did your daughter do in that tournament? Because we had a lot of junior golfers. I said, how did they do? And so they just kind of became invested in that, saying, okay, so there's somebody that cares, and listening. I tell you what, that goes forever with these kids, because to be honest, all they want to do is tell you about them and what they're doing.
Story.
And,
someone to listen to. Okay.
Yes.
Now that's important. That relationship there. So that actually that's a big major shift in terms of building that relationship with the student, just because they need someone that can listen to them, right? They want to
Hmm.
tell people about what's going on, and for
Right.
you to have that, call it open ear, and it sounds like no one's really scared to approach you and tell you those stories, right? No, no,
Sometimes
that's
they tell you some things you're just like, wait, whoa, hold on. Like it's just random things that they tell you, which, but to be honest, that tells me that they trust us enough
they do.
and that
Yeah,
they give you they wear their emotions on their sleeves pretty easily, mostly junior high kids.
yeah,
And
yeah,
them coming to talk to us because they don't like to talk to adults. They don't like teachers. I shouldn't say that. They don't like it. They just think that we're robots at times. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
being able just to sit there and talk to them and say, okay, tell me what you need to tell me. And I says, and I don't tell them, I says, talk to me in your language. If you have to say a word that, may not be acceptable, I says, I'm not going to hold that against you because I know these kids hear it on not only the radio, the TV, they hear it at home. And so
Yeah,
when they
for
tell me
sure.
and they talk in that, and it's like, whoa, I can actually say that. And I said, well, let's keep it, on the PG side at times. But when I have my office, I give them, there's a no judgment zone in there. They can be
Yeah,
whoever
no,
they are
that's
going to be in
amazing.
there. And that's one of those I think they appreciate that more because I don't know if they get that at home. And that's my also kind of how I'm thinking is like, what do they get at home as opposed to what they do at school? Because you got two
Yeah, no,
different
I think
kids.
and now you're creating an environment where now they're learning, right? You're going to school and learning, maybe not, not I'm not talking about learning textbooks or anything like that, but the
Right.
stuff that you're teaching and the mindset and the kind of beliefs there. So
Hmm.
if the next generation fully embraced your belief that success isn't about perfection, but consistent progress,
Yes.
what kind of leaders, professionals, and athletes would we see 5 years from now?
Oh, so we watch the Olympics, and
Okay.
I kind of give them some things and how I show them how humble I am. They're always saying, "God, I had to do this, and I had to do this," and the people that helped me. And I mean, and you're hearing a lot more of those Olympic stars saying that it's not just them; they have these teams that surround them, or
Yeah.
the children, their spouses, their parents. All the time that they put in. I think you're starting to see a little bit more of that, how empathy kind of kicks in because for
Okay.
a while there,
Okay.
empathy was not something that's really known. And I teach that in my class quite a bit. It's like my big rule, and it sounds so cliche, but treat others how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And
I love that. Yep.
it's one of those, it's so simple. And the kids come back and they say, I didn't like the way they treated me. I says, but how did you treat them first? I says, don't blame it on somebody else. How did you do it?
Yeah.
Because
Take
you have
ownership
that
of that.
control.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love
And
that.
so I think in a couple years, I think we're going to see a change where the kids are, they know that they had to have help from outside. Yes, they have the ability, and everybody has that inside of them. It's
Yeah.
just helping bring that out. And when they have their parent, and I says, you got to respect your parents because they are there to help you. We're here to teach you. We're not here to be your friends. That's down the road a little bit. It's like
Okay.
when they're in
Yeah.
that learning
Yeah.
stage, you got to, unfortunately, tough love. And that's kind of how I was brought up. My dad would always say, if I had a bad day on the golf course, he goes, what could you have done better? Not
Okay.
what did you
Okay.
do? What did you, do that? Or even when I played baseball and soccer, it was like, what could you have done better? And
Yeah.
make
I
them
love that.
think
I love
about
that.
that.
No, I
And
love
that's
that.
hard because
And
they don't want to do that. They want to blame it on something else. It was the official's
yeah.
fault,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of
You're right.
stuff.
Especially from a coaching standpoint, parent standpoint. Parents are the first to blame, right? Even if their
Sure.
kid is not doing well, they're going to blame the coach. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's one of those, it's like, and at times I like to take ownership in that is like, okay, what did I not do right to make that kid maybe lose it at the end of a game or in a PE game, what made them break down? Did I not give them
Okay.
all of the tools? And there are times where, like I said before, is you can always take a horse to water, but sometimes they just don't want to drink. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I have that fight between my head sometimes. It's like, okay, am I not doing this? But I'm also, okay, they're not taking the tools to be able to do the things they know they can do.
No, got it. Got it. Cool. Ryan, before I ask you the last question, or actually the last question I would have to ask you is, I want to open up the floor for you in terms of, is there anything you would like to share regarding your current position, your school, another philosophy you believe in, something you want to share with our listeners? I'm just giving you an open floor for
Sure.
you to share with our listeners. Is there anything that we didn't cover or you want to emphasize or you want to share with our listeners?
I had a very successful coaching career, and I don't say it very often. And one of my daughter's friends went over to the school where I used to coach at, and
Okay.
we won the state golf tournament for Illinois 7 years in a row.
Wow.
And it's one of those, it's like,
oh, wait. You need to stop there because, winning state, there's coaches that have been coaching for years, 30, 40 years and don't win state.
I know. And I have to remember that. It's like, we had such a run of great players that came through, and the kids wanted to go to school there because they knew that the people that were kind of putting things out there say, okay, this is what we're going to learn. I didn't let the kids just go play golf. We made them practice. If they did something on the golf course they knew they shouldn't have done, I made them run. Now, you don't hear about golfers running because but if they make a mistake of, okay, so they said something on the course, they slammed their club down, they threw their club in the water. I hate to say that happened, but they would have, like I said, skin in the game. But I also talked to those kids and said, what makes you want to do better? That was one of my questions I had for them. And it's like, they gave me their goals, but they're like, it's making my parents happy. And also it's something that I know that I have control over and nobody else. And that's one of the things that really kind of set deep into me. I was like, holy cow, that's right. Because a lot of these kids do individualistic sports. A lot of them that played golf, played tennis. Okay. They had bowling. That's a big thing here. And so, it was just one of those, I would really like to pick the kids' brains because, they're going out there and I was amazed every time. I always joke that, I got them on the van and I got them to the first tee and there we go play. But there was more to it. And I still have relationships with a lot of my players. And I just talked to one today, as a matter of fact, and he was asking me a question, and his son is now playing bitty basketball. And so he's like, do you remember this time when we went on this golf trip that, you told me something? Do you remember what you told me? And, being able to, go back to that and have that relationship with them. And then also to remember, holy cow, they did listen. And that, I tell them, all I want them to do is listen. It's not like I'm trying to drive you somewhere, but I want you to make sure you understand that I'm here for you and I want to see you succeed. I want you to be one of those kids that goes out in the world and is successful, regardless in anything you do. I just want you to be successful. And not only his, family life, and now he's got 2 kids of his own. And it's so funny because I remember him being at that age and I'm like, oh God, now I'm old because now he has 2 kids that are, growing up so fast. But talking to them and saying, okay, remember that you have control over everything. Sometimes people can throw curveballs at you and you got to kind of slide to this side to kind of adjust to that.
I love that analogy. Yeah.
So, but just most of the time I listen to the kid. I like talking to kids because, they say the darndest things. And it's funny to hear how they think and how they view life, because being my age, I don't see it like they do. They live in a whole different world than we do. It's like the computers have always been around. I had to learn how to use a computer, cell phones and stuff like that. They automatically almost seem like they know what they're doing. Where me, I'm that dinosaur that, I'm still texting voice to chat, but listening to them and understanding things from their point of view gives you a nice in-depth look at everything to see how are they going to succeed, what do they need to do to get to that point, and so how are they going to accomplish their goals.
No, thanks for sharing that and sharing your stories and the impact you're making with students. A lot of students don't see that or recognize that in the moment, where 5-10 years from now they're going to come back and say, okay, look at what Coach Ryan shared with me. Oh, I remember that now. Right. And it comes full circle. So Ryan, I appreciate you for bringing clarity and humility into this space. Family, this was about growth, not hype, not shortcuts, not perfection, just progress. Ryan reminded us that success isn't about being flawless. It's about being better than you were yesterday, 1% better. He wants you to be successful. So if you're an athlete listening, understand this. 1% daily becomes unstoppable momentum. If you did the work consistently, imagine who you'd be this time next year. If you're a parent, focus on growth over grades, identity over image. And if you're a coach, model progress first, standards follow example. Ryan, thank you again for reminding us we're never finished building. Family, if this episode moved you, share it with someone committed to growth. I'm Coach Randy, and this is a Built Different Studio podcast where we break down the mindset, systems, and habits that create champions in school, sport, and life. Here's the reality. Potential without structure stays potential. Effort without strategy plateaus. And as Ryan mentioned, progress without guidance slows. So in order to accomplish long-term development, recruiting clarity, and confidence in your path, you need exactly structured mentorship, proven growth systems, accountability frameworks, and strategic college planning support. This is what we build at Athletic Connect. If you want your student athlete to focus on 1% daily growth and have the structure to support it, visit our website, www.athleticconnect.com. Apply to be a guest on the Built Different Studio Podcast. We're on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Watch, listen, subscribe, share. If you're serious about building progress that compounds, the blueprint is waiting. Handle today with intention. That's how champions are built. Ryan, thank you again for your time. Fight on.
Thank you. All right, take care.
Remember this, family. Talent might open the door, but your mindset, your habits, and your discipline decide how far you go. So keep showing up, keep building, and keep choosing the harder road, because that's the one that makes you built different. I'm Coach Randy, and this is the Built Different Studio Podcast.